Change before you have to. That was Jack Welch who said that, and during his 20 years as the head of GE, the company's value rose 4,000%. Now, we're not for profit, so I can't promise that kind of a return. But I love the simplicity of that advice. Change before you have to convey the key challenge that is to come before us if we are to remain relevant in the years to come. We don't want to merely be swept aside by the tides of globalization and technology, or worse, left behind. We want to be able to shape the change to meet the twin objectives of setting the foundations of a vibrant legal future and making real progress at improving access to justice. Given the considerable, although not insurmountable, challenges we face, the time to act is now, as lawyers and as an organization. Le milieu juridique est en évolution, non seulement au sein de l'ABC, mais dans l'ensemble de la profession. It is only fitting that the CBA is hosting the discussion about these opportunities in the city of St. John's, whose motto is "Go Forward," which I find kind of funny for people who live on an island. Although I suppose "Go in a Circle" wouldn't have the same sort of appeal. St. John's is a beautiful city, at least the bottom half of it, which is what I've been able to see through the fog for the last 4 days. If the fog is lifting or has lifted, then presumably I will get to see the rest of this beautiful city. I am very happy to be here and so honored to be speaking to you as the soon-to-be president of the CBA. Stepping into this position is thrilling for me on a personal level, but also on a professional one, especially at a time like this. So I do want to talk briefly about what I think and hope this year will hold for me and for all of us. Our Reaching Equal Justice initiative is up and running. We adopted its recommendations or targets last February. And this morning, we passed 4 specific resolutions on improving our capabilities, effective triage, technology for equal justice, and increasing effectiveness or awareness of legal aid, all of which is a giant step in moving this work forward. One of the themes in the Envisioning Equal Justice report was to think globally, act locally, which I think is good advice for many of the things that we do. As I visit your branches in the coming months, I will be reminding you that we are counting on your support and partnership to drive the equal justice work forward. And I look forward to seeing how the recommendations and targets that we have all supported are coming to life in your own provinces and territories. Turning to our other major initiative, you've heard Fred Heaton's presentation to this council, along with his colleagues, on the report of legal futures, and I hope that you were as excited and challenged by what you heard as I was. Fred, this is very important, will be staying on as the chair of the Futures Initiative, and I cannot tell you how grateful I am for that commitment. While I may take on some of the spokesperson role for Futures, Fred will still be the engine behind it. You just won't have to listen to any more stories about his dentist. I know that we will all benefit from Fred's expertise and passion for this, and I'm really looking forward to being part of the discussions on how the CBA and our members can best use this information to make us more successful for years to come. It is time to do law differently. We can do that by listening to what clients want and involving them in ways that we have not traditionally done, by learning from other professionals and understanding the potential that technology can have in improving how we run our practices. We need to figure out better ways of serving Canadians, and some of these new and innovative ways of looking at legal services will also help us fill a gap in underserviced legal markets. And innovation, of course, is a close cousin to diversity. Although the legal profession is somewhat late to the party, the idea that diversity in any company or organization makes for wider thinking, better innovation, and the ability to identify and service new clients seems obvious now. How our profession attracts, develops, and retains its people of all backgrounds has never been more important. And it is why one of my priorities for my term as president is to do everything I can to help the profession commit to diversity and inclusion. Firms without diversity are at a disadvantage compared to those that are more inclusive. Let's be honest, When most of us are asked to solve a problem, a legal problem, we begin by flipping through our own personal Rolodexes of experience or thinking about previous files, trying to find something that's relevant or to extrapolate from something that we were previously successful with. That is not innovation. That's the definition of not innovation. A diverse set of experiences, perspectives, and backgrounds are crucial to the development of new ideas. But besides the business case, the fact is that pushing for more diversity in the legal profession is simply the right thing to do. Canadian society is diverse, we know that. And our legal profession, including, importantly, our leadership positions, should reflect that. A lack of diversity in practice, in corporations, in the judiciary, means that our clients and our citizens are not getting the benefit of diverse thinking, a benefit most of us have now recognized and one that they deserve. The legal profession needs to build, or at least fortify, its bridges to all Canadian communities. Of course, diversity also means many different things. Let me talk for a moment about an issue that I will make as a priority during my term, women in the profession. It has been 21 years since the CBA released the Touchstones report, and that's the 1993 report on gender equality in the legal profession. If you have ever doubted the value of this kind of work done by this organization, take a look at how often the Touchstones report has been cited or referred to. I did just that this summer as I tried to add some actual research and statistics to my own anecdotal experiences as a woman lawyer. I want to extend my gratitude again to the people that worked so hard on that report, including one of my own law partners, and to all the people, men and women, who have continued to work on issues of retention and advancement of women in the profession. The impulse to reread Touchstones came in part after I had heard Chief Justice McLaughlin speak in Calgary last April. She gave a great speech to the CCCA conference that was very provocative in a good way, challenging us to look at our institutions and our organizations through the lens of gender equality. She made the point that it is important for all of us to see ourselves reflected in the leadership of our organizations and our institutions. The message was essentially this: if you don't have gender parity, it's time to ask why not. And I couldn't agree more. I watched with interest the release of the Ontario Securities Commission proposed guidelines, which would require publicly traded companies to report the percentage of female directors on their boards, and where not representative, explain why not, and what is being done to address the inequality. And in fact, we passed a resolution this morning to encourage other federal, provincial, and territorial regulators to do likewise. At first, when I heard about the OSC proposed amendments, I wasn't sure how I felt about that. Perhaps it's being from Alberta, I felt it was pretty aggressive for a capitalist economy and for the public markets. And feeling somewhat equivocal about it, I filed it away in my mind without crystallizing an opinion. A short time later, I was having drinks with a friend of mine from the oil and gas industry, which, by the way, is one in which female directors are at a nationwide low of approximately 9% of boards. Thank you. And over drinks, this topic came up. I don't think I even raised it, but the topic of women on boards came up. And his comment to me, which we have all heard, was to the effect that there simply weren't enough qualified women yet. But there would be eventually. Just look at how far women have come in the last 50 years, he said. You just need to be patient. You can't rush these things. It turned out I did have an opinion about that. I just didn't know it until that moment. Now, maybe decades ago, I would have believed that there were not sufficient numbers of women to fill equal positions on boards, in managing partner offices of firms or now law firm board positions, in seats of government or on our courts. But I don't believe that now. I don't believe that there is a single job in Canada for which you could not find a qualified woman. Not one. Now, I know that my Twitter feed is now going to explode with people giving me examples of things like male model and professional football player and stuff like that, but you get my point. In putting forward those 2014 proposed amendments, the OSC, I'm going to give you some statistics here, but hang in, surveyed approximately 1,000 companies. The response rate, which was voluntary, was 46%, which is huge. Of the responding companies, only 3 of 448 had at least half women on their boards. That is 0.6% gender parity. And many of these companies don't have term limits or policies on term limits, so new directors are not appointed regularly. Of the 40% that did appoint new directors in the year before the survey, 88% of them appointed men. So the idea that it will just happen naturally over time, don't believe it. It won't. If gender parity in the leadership or positions of our organizations and our institutions is acknowledged by all of us, men and women, as something that is good and necessary, then let's stop accepting worn-out excuses for why it's not happening. Let's make it happen. I realize it sounds like I'm picking on corporations, and I'm not. In fact, kudos to the OSC and to the 448 companies that voluntarily provided that data. As Fred has said this morning, if we don't have data, we can't identify the bottlenecks. We can't diagnose the problem or work to any solution. So that must be the first step for all of us, in government, within the CBA, and in our own organizations and firms. Secondly, while this address has focused on gender inequality, I want to say loudly and clearly that many other equality-seeking groups are also underrepresented in all the positions I've described, and it is just as unacceptable as gender inequality. Diversity means diversity of race, gender, age, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and physical ability. There's also diversity in where you live. There's diversity in incomes, perspectives, and more. Another of my priorities, again tied to attracting the best and diverse talent into our profession and helping it thrive there, is personal wellness in the profession. Une autre de mes priorités pour l'année à venir sera le bien-être des juristes. Many of you know that I love my job, truly love my job, but I know that that is not the case for everyone in law, that our ranks are full of people who are struggling with anxiety, depressions, addiction, and stress. These things can insinuate themselves into every aspect of life, robbing people of their ability to function, much less thrive. The CBA is perfectly situated to provide for the needs and support of our lawyers. Everyone at some point needs a soft place to land, I believe that. Lawyers, for reasons I don't need to explain to you, are at greater than average risk for addiction, depression, and other mental health issues. It's time for us to start a frank discussion about the pressures of the profession and the problems that so many of us experience at one time or another. I have worked with Assist in Alberta and with LPAC at the national level, and am very much looking forward to continued collaboration. And I know that many of our leaders, including some on the incoming board for next year, have expressly made this one of their priorities as well. We need to take advantage of that momentum and the potential for partnership in supporting lawyers on issues of mental illness. And while I don't want to detract from the importance of recognizing and helping lawyers in crisis, I'd also like to talk this year about the more proactive things that LPAC and others recommend that we do to stay healthy. We all get our eyes checked, we take our pets to the vet, we change the oil in our cars, but we seldom assess our mental, emotional, and spiritual health in any systematic way, and we should. Schedule a little conversation with yourself every once in a while. Michele, how are you sleeping? How have your eating habits been? How are you feeling? Have you spent some time talking to your friends and family today? Have you exercised? Okay, have you done anything that could be remotely called exercise? I once made a New Year's resolution to exercise 30 minutes every day, and one of my coworkers said, well, how long do you think you'll be able to keep that up? I said, oh, indefinitely. The definition of exercise may become more elastic over time. I want us to take care of ourselves, and I want us to take care of each other. Finally, my year as president will be largely involved with the CBA's rethink. Last February, our board was presented with the results of a brand audit which showed a significant relevance deficit between the CBA and lawyers. Lawyers, even our members, do not understand or value what we do. Now, I've been through many brand audits and many surveys in my 20-some years with this organization, and frankly, I was not expecting to be particularly compelled by the results of another brand audit. However, when these concerning and stark results were combined with the fact that we have had a slow and small but steady decline in membership, and with our financial situation, things came into focus pretty quickly. The Finance Committee will be asking this council today to approve a deficit budget. This is the first time in my memory that we will be proposing a deficit budget. Importantly, however, it is not the first time we will actually have a deficit. For some time, we've been funding at least parts of our core operations from reserves. Even I, with extremely limited financial acumen, know that we cannot keep doing all we're doing and in fact continue to add more. However well-intended and however valued by segments of our membership, our current model is not sustainable. So as Fred mentioned this morning, the board has approved moving forward with an organization-wide review and potential restructuring. This is not directionless navel-gazing. This is a financial and organizational imperative. It is not tweaking. It is not how we're going to do what we do, but just do it better. It is a stem to stern, because we're in Newfoundland, or in Alberta we would say tip to tail, review and potential restructuring. If we are going to not just survive as the CBA, but thrive as the CBA, we must reassess who we are not, what we do, who we serve, and how. Yesterday, the Board of Directors voted to engage outside consultants, which are absolutely necessary in a process of this scope. And we have board approval to proceed with finalizing that contract and with the oversight internally of that project. We will be meeting by phone on a frequent basis to assess and move forward with consultations, discussion, and ultimately, of course, recommendations to this body. For this to be truly effective, we need to understand that there can be no sacred cows. That's a phrase that in the board and other meetings involving Rethink we hear repeatedly. There are no sacred cows. And I always say that my own experience with that is when people say there are no sacred cows, what they really mean is your cow is not sacred to me, we should kill your cow. Now that can't happen here. Everything really is on the table. And believe me, I do have, I think, a pretty good grasp of how difficult this process may be. But a year and a half from now, we plan, with your approval, to have reshaped our organization into not just a revitalized organization, but a new one that is valued and relevant. And this is not a process, very important, this is not a process to be undertaken or completed in some inner sanctum of CBA leadership. It is not for the executive officers to reshape the CBA. It is not for the board to reshape the CBA. It is for council, informed by all of us as members and also by your non-engaged members and even non-members. So if you or someone like you has ever said, there's really no programming at this for me, there's no opportunities for me to get involved, I don't like the way this works, they should do it this way, then you need to get ready because you are up to bat. We need and will be searching out your complaints, your ideas, your suggestions, and even your accolades. Now, I personally have some trepidation in beginning this process, but I am also genuinely excited about the wide open possibilities of what we might become. As an ancient Chinese philosopher once wrote, if you do not change direction, you may end up where you are heading, which I think sounds more like an ancient Chinese golfer than philosopher, but. So it promises to be a year of change. The discussion on futures, movement on gender and other diversity within and outside the CBA, and a complete rethink of everything we do. No problem. When one is acclaimed as I was, you serve in your position with knowing that not a single person endorsed you to do so, at least not by vote. And so, as I did when I was acclaimed, I promise again to do my very best in the service of the CBA and to hopefully justify my place as its president. But I am counting on your involvement and your support. Merci. Thank you.